Welcome to another episode of Autogefuel. This weekend, we have with us the all-new Opel Zafira Life. So let's take a closer look and find out what this MPV is capable of. The new Opel Zafira is now the Zafira Life and is a much bigger van. Up front, that also shows because we have a very flat snub nose out the front, very reminiscent of any of these passenger vans. You get Bison-on headlamps with LED daytime running lights, so no full LED option available. The Zafira Life is 2.2 meters wide. Depending on the version you get, it is about 1,700 kilograms up to 850 kilograms. This Zafira Life comes in 3 different lengths, built on 2 different platforms, or rather wheelbases, and all of them can be had with 9 seats. The shorter version is 4.6 meters long and comes with the shorter wheelbase. Here we have the longer wheelbase version, and this is the middle level because this is 5 meters long. There's also an elongated version which is 5.3 meters long, but still built on the same platform, or the wheelbase rather. It's also interesting to note that this van is 1.9 meters tall. The back of the van is, again, very bland as well, I think. But in a way, I think it works for this design. It is very reminiscent of the other MPVs or vans in the segment, like the T6 or the Peugeot Traveller. So very vertical tail lamps, cubic, as you can see, kind of like the ice cubes that we saw up front for the LED lights on the bottom. You do sit fairly up high. You do have really good visibility and the dashboard is quite low. The materials, unfortunately, are still quite hard all around. So somehow I do feel that they could have used a little bit more better materials. The cockpit is fairly simple. You have analog dials for the tachometer, for the speedometer, a temperature gauge and a fuel gauge. As we go further towards the side, now we have the 7-inch display, the infotainment screen, which is a touchscreen, which has some hotkey buttons around the side. We know, for example, with your with the car logo, you can set up some of the advanced assistance systems like the lane departure warning, the parking sensors. There's also a blind spot monitoring system and even a emergency pedestrian safety system where the car will detect there's a pedestrian crossing in the front and automatically initiate an emergency braking system if you like. This overall system is not the best. Unfortunately, I'm not too happy with it. It is not the slickest to respond, and the screen is a bit small in comparison with the rest of the dashboard. Getting into the back of the Zafira Life is also easy thanks to the foot-controlled sliding rear doors for the left and the right. So it opens up automatically. Again, depending on the version, we have the VIP business shuttle. Inside, as you can see, being a passenger van in the D segment, there is ample room. I mean, you can get this with the Flex 7, 8 or Flex 9 seating arrangement. Right here now we actually have the captain seat, so this is a 6-seat arrangement. You can also get the face-to-face vis-a-vis seats where you actually rotate these seats to face each other. With these seats you have a lot of options. Of course, you have a ratchet for the armrest so you can set the height that you want, a sunshade that you can have. Also a kind of a split panoramic sunroof, so the center console, or rather the center of the roof, is still housing the air vents and a third climate zone. And of course these seats can also be reclined a little bit so that the passengers find a comfortable position. and with one switch very easily tumble it so that you can access the third row. So back here, same thing, the seats can also be slid forward on these railings to liberate more space for the luggage compartment area. You can also recline the seat a little bit more. There's also this grab handle to get inside, making it easier. Air conditioning vents as well as a light. And some of these kind of these dummies that you see here, for example, could have the 230 volt, 220 volt plug socket. Thankfully, the Zafira Life has the ability to open just the glass and not the entire tailgate, and you can retrieve your cameraman's sunglasses that he forgot.
Thank you.
But of course, you can use this button down there to release the entire tailgate. This is quite massive, so you have to be pretty careful when you're opening this in car parks. But depending on the way you have your seats configured, the maximum amount of volume with this medium length on the longer wheelbase version of the Zafira Life, you can get up to 4,200 liters of trunk space. This is a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. It can be either had in the tune of 150 horsepower, metric horsepower, or PS, or 177 like the one we have right here. You can also get a smaller 1.5-liter turbo 4 diesel engine, which can be either had with 102 horsepower or 120 horsepower. All of these engines and tunes can be had with the 6-speed manual transmission, but the big one, the 177 like the one we have here, comes coupled with the 8-speed torque converter automatic gearbox. They are all transversely mounted and go only to front wheel drive. But you can also get the Vauxhall 4x4 conversion for this van, wherein you would have the on-demand coupling, which would provide torque and drive to the rear axle, thus making it a 4-wheel drive vehicle. But if you don't want a diesel engine, you can wait till 2021 when they will have the full electric version of this vehicle. The engine itself is very smooth. The engine has been designed, this 2-liter engine, with also has things like variable geometry for the turbo. It also has a balancing shaft, so that it is a little bit more refined. It is not as grumbly as you would generally think, or general diesel engines sometimes tend to be. That way it's pretty good. These very large rear view mirrors also give you plenty of view out the side because they're slightly taller, so it provides pretty good visibility. In terms of visibility in general, of course, there's very high seating position, pretty large windshield up front, really tall windows, a large tailgate in the back, so there's plenty of visibility all around, so you can place this car very easily. Now, let's talk a little bit about the driving position, because there's somehow, I'm not so satisfied with it. There's something that seems a bit odd about it. First of all, my knee is constantly hitting the center console, which initially I felt, okay, is uncomfortable, but now I'm kind of using it as a way for me to rest my leg against that, which is pretty comfortable in the end. But just you test that out and see how you feel about it when you do a long test drive. But the pedals, especially the brake pedal, seems a bit too close to me, because now I have the seat in a little bit of a higher position, so I can see out front much nicer and much more easier. And then the the accelerator pedal is positioned really well. It's right at the tip of my foot, so I can comfortably manipulate the throttle. But the brake pedal is significantly further back and higher than the throttle pedal, so I kind of have to, it's a bit of a twist that I have to perform in order to get my foot on the brake pedal. The top part of the door is, height-wise is in a nice position and a nice height for you to rest your elbow on, but unlike the right side, first of all, it's not in the same height, and secondly, whereas this is a nice padded armrest, which is part of the seat, the left side isn't, and you don't have an armrest on the left side of the seat, so you would end up putting your arm there, and it is a very hard plastic. There is no padding at all. So some of these things seem a bit like they could be improved. The steering wheel itself has a very slow rack, which means that it is a very slow reacting steering wheel. You do have to turn quite a bit for you to get any kind of steering input. But the plus side is it feels really planted on the highway and on open roads, because even a small movement doesn't really upset the stability of the car. Speaking of stability in general, it is very planted. Even though it is fairly tall, it feels quite sure-footed on the highway, as we saw. The sound insulation is pretty good. Yes, it is a very tall, boxy van, and that means that it is not the most aerodynamic, and hence you're going to have a little bit more wind noise. But all that being considered, it is definitely pretty hushed. Around this bend over here, just at 70 kilometers per hour, of course I do feel quite a bit of body roll, but that is to be expected. But again, because of this tall body, you do get really good visibility. Let's summarize today's episode of the all-new Opel Zafira Life. Well, with prices starting at around $35,000 for the small wheelbase version with pretty basic amenities, I think that's a pretty good deal for a 9-seat family MPV. But if you go for the slightly larger one, either the M, like the one we have here, the middle level, or the larger full-long wheelbase version, you can even touch 48 or 50,000 euros. But again, if you're easy on the configurator, you can still get a pretty good price for one of these cars, or rather vans, should I say. So all in all, I think it has a really good price-value proposition, but that also means that unfortunately, there are some areas where I find that there's just a bit of too much of cost cutting. Some of the plastics and the materials used, I think, should have been a little bit better, at least on the armrest, on the door, for example. I don't really mind the hard plastics on the top of the dash. I know that you can live with it quite easily, but where you keep your elbow on the door should be a little bit more padded. Also, some of the technology, I think, should also be upgraded. I think it's not really up to date with the current generation of the infotainment systems we see from some of its competitors. I think the touchscreen is a little bit slow. The rear parking camera is also not the clearest. That top-down 360 view is also not really the most advanced. And the seating position somehow to me seemed a bit awkward. And not too bad. After a weekend of driving, I got used to it, but it kept reminding me that, okay, things are a little bit different here than the cars I usually drive. So make sure that if you're going to be interested in one of these cars, take a test drive long enough for you to try out all of these seating positions and find a way if you can be really comfortable with the way the brake pedal is placed and with the way the steering wheel feels a little bit off center. But that being said, for this price point, with that all-wheel drive version available, it does seem like a really fun family adventure wagon. And I think that's what is also really appealing about vehicles such as this. On the other side as well, for having a very luxurious VIP business shuttle like the one we have here, I think it also has a great market for that as well. I'm curious to see how well these sell. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new here. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll see you guys next time.